Hey everybody, welcome back to Landshark Garage. This episode, we got the old mullet machine out of hibernation. Let's see what else it needs. Here we go. So if you've been following our channel, you know that a couple of years ago now, we picked this 80 Camaro up from Mordsky Repair and started working on it. It ran when we bought it. We did a lot of work on it, rebuilt the dash, put everything together, took out that tired 305 700 R4 and put in a 350 with a turbo 350 transmission. This is Landshark tackled these stock rims. We put on the Cooper Cobras, got everything running. Let's see, what else? New headliner in it? Yes. Put new carpet in it? Yes. Got to put a rear view mirror in it? Yeah, I know. The dash, Mrs. Landshark tackled that. All these videos are available on our page if you want to take a look at them. But we got everything back together, drove it about 4 miles and didn't want to run. We were close to our storage shed, so we pushed it right in there, and that's where it sat till about a week or so ago. We went down and got to looking at it, and turns out what we thought was an electrical issue was a carburetor issue. So got plenty of carburetors laying around, but went ahead and did the right thing. Bought the exact same carburetor in a new version because it was definitely something fuel related. Fuel would come out of the vent tubes. I know the accelerator pump was leaking, but it was just aggravating, and that was a used carburetor. Decided we weren't going to mess around with it anymore. Picked this guy up, went down to the annex and put it on, and it fit fairly good. Started right up. The only thing we really have left to do on this right now, carburetor wise, is to run the keyed hot wire to run the electric choke. So when you start it, she's a little fast idly because of the choke engages. If you remember from the last time we worked on this, we got new hinges for it because we were having some hood issues, and they sent us the wrong driver's side hinge, and we got that after we had already parked this thing for the season down at the annex. So we have that to put on. Little things, we're either going to try and get this hood to sit right on here, or we're going to do the right thing and just pin it and leave it that way, because if we put that hinge on the driver's side and it doesn't kind of correct what's going on here, maybe we got a little bent frame and stuff, and we don't have no time for that. So we just want to get out and drive it. And a few other things, you know, we put different headlights in it, got the grill and stuff. These windows have this film on them. I don't know if you can see it, but not the dirt film. We're going to take care of that tonight. But these scratches, so we bought a kit that maybe we can clean these windows up so they look a little bit better. Maybe we can buff it out, see what this paint looks like underneath. We have that louver, if you remember from the other episode. I just took it off for the season. We'll put that back on. It's actually sitting over there. This hinge deal, if you watch the episode where we replaced this hinge on the car, that was a debacle. Interesting, but it took forever, and it was a dangerous setup how we did it. And this new hinge didn't come with that spring on it, but using a little, I don't know if you'd call it ingenuity, there's holes in here. I screwed this thing down to my table. This table's been with the company a long time. It's on wheels, so it could have moved if I wanted it to, but I got this screwed down to this table with some deck screws, some heavy deck screws, and I got the spring on here, took a little look at how it hooks over here, got an old, well not old, well yeah old, let me see if I can find the tool I used. Here, remember these from when people had drum brakes? Okay, I used that end of it. Put the end of the spring on there, flipped this over that, went like that, and it popped right in there. It took me about 4 minutes. It took me longer to screw it down and unscrew it than it took me to put that spring on. We messed around with this thing for a good part of a day, trying to pull that spring out and put it over that hook on there. So that's done. We got to install it to see if we can get this hood to lay down. Otherwise, just cleaning it up is all we really have to do right now, and a lot of little things, and then we're going to take this thing out and thrash on it. So let's clean it up and see what she looks like. So what we're hoping for tonight, get this all washed up, and we're going to throw the buffer at it and see how this paint comes out when you do a little rubbing compound. So I'm just waiting on Mrs. Landshark. Oh, hi.
Hi. Hello, boys and girls of the YouTube world.
Hey, thinking of that, if we get this thing running, maybe we should challenge Mortsky to a burn off with that Dirt Reynolds thing that he's got. We could just see how many tires we can go through. That'd be cool. But let's get this thing cleaned up. So this thing sits way too high in the front anyway. We're gonna clip a coil off of that sometime, get her down to land speed level, and then we'll hopefully we'll get to drive this thing. God, I hope we get to drive this thing. We really like it. It's hard for an old fat guy to get into, but that's okay. Let's get this cleaned up. Oh, kind of wanted to go sideways. Well, there sure difference there. Buffing away. It's going to take a little while to get everything through. So we're using this risk-free compound next generation paint correction that I have had since we built Mrs. Landshark's 68 Chevy, and we decided that we can probably pop for a new bottle now that we know that this is going to buff out pretty nice. Speak of the devil, what's she doing? God, I hate it when people do that to my cement. Yeah, we're gonna keep on buffing, so stay tuned. All right, we're back at her. So the original temperature gauge on the Camaro, I don't know if it's the gauge sensor or the gauge itself, but always pegged out as hot as it can be, so I don't really trust it. So I'm putting in a picked up a couple more of these bad boys. Nice. So I'm putting in a aftermarket temp sensor, electric one. I don't mind the ones that mechanical ones, but they're such a pain in the butt to run. And this one's pretty straightforward. So it's electrical. I'm going to put the gauge up in the engine, up in the passenger compartment. I have to run a wire so I can get some keyed power to the choke on the carburetor, so that'll work. I got to put that hinge on that side so we can see if we can get this hood to latch. And if we can't get it to latch, we're gonna pin it like old school mullet rides would be anyway. And that's about it for now. This is gonna be pretty boring, so I'm probably not gonna tape a lot of it. That, and it's like 100 frickin' degrees today, so I've got 3 air conditioners running. One over there, you can see it right there, the permanent air conditioner, the portable air conditioner, and still free flow sweating. And Jake's not loving any of it. He's an air conditioned dog. Actually, he was just laying out in the backyard like a moron. But we'll get this tackled and we'll take a look at it when we get done. All right, well, that gauge project, which should have been about a 20-minute project, took a little bit longer than that. Anyway, gauge is all mounted. It's the chrome one there. Had I been thinking ahead, I'd have had either 2 blacks or 2 chromes, but it doesn't matter as long as it tells me what the temperature of the engine is. And no, that is not going to affect how my leg sits in there. I checked that out before I battened everything down. One thing I do know, I am way too fat to be playing underneath the dash of a car, especially an 80 Camaro, but it's exciting. All right, so anyway, went ahead and got that Holly hooked up to keyed power here. This is my sender for the temp gauge, same one I was using for the other one. And I know there's a guy that just thinks this is the worst thing in the world, putting a sender there, but that's what GM did on some vehicles, so it's okay. Didn't have a slide-on coupler, so I made one there. Pretty handy. Now I'm gonna tackle that hinge over there. We got some polishing to do. Still got to clip the coils on this. Still right at 100 degrees. Way too hot. Way too hot. But get that hinge in, we can figure out what we're gonna do with this hood, because we're hoping that by the end of this week we'll be able to get this in one of the local car shows, just for something to do, because it's such a mullet machine. God, I can't wait to drive this. Burnouts! Well, we took a little break from the Camaro today to come out here and salvage this bumper and grill for the 49 Chevy. My buddy Dylan saw it on another friend of mine's scrap pile, and he was nice enough to take it off of this pile and put it down on the ground so we can cut all this stuff out. So we're going to try and get that out and see if we can make it usable. It's got some pretty good woos in it, but we'll take a look. Well, there we go. Only took, what, an hour? Yeah, hour and a half. One trip back to town. Probably sweated out 10 pounds, which, you know, I can use to lose that. But we got our grill little dented there, not going to be bad. Bumper going to be a little more challenging, but we might be able to take it. The nice thing is we were able to save this original grill and it'll look good on the 49. It was on that pile, now it's going on our pile. Sweet, let's get back to the Camaro. Well, we got her up in the air, ready to cut one coil out of the coil spring, which I actually thought I could do with the plasma cutter, but after I look at it, I'm just going to do it same way we did the 3+3 a couple weeks ago. Probably not going to tape this because if you can hear that fan blowing in the background, it's 95 degrees in the shop. But I'm basically going to take the lower ball joint loose, sway bar link loose, outer tie rod loose, ratchet strap this up out of the way, drop it down so I can get the spring out, cut one coil out, put it all back together, put it down on the ground, and we'll see where we are measurement wise. If anything really exciting happens, we'll loop you back in. Otherwise, we'll have her done here in a little bit. Well, as you can see, this is going swimmingly. Shock was held on by two 3/8" bolts. You know how that goes, instead of using the locking retainer that they normally used. Top of the shock was stripped out, so I couldn't use my shock tool to take it out, so I got everything propped up OSHA-like so I can cut the top of that shock off and get it out of there. So yeah, otherwise, coil's cut, ready to go. Alright, there we go. She went down a little less than we wanted to, but it sits a lot better than it did before. We ended up having to cut the sway bar links to get them off, and so we're gonna have to replace them. And while we're at it, I think we're gonna throw some shocks at it. But Mrs. Landshark has been busting on the buffing. This side still needs to be done. Well, let's go around over this side. It's like polishing a turd, but look at that. Doesn't that look good? Yeah. So what we're going to do, since we didn't paint this front, we're just going to tell everybody that this is a fiberglass front end and lie about it because we just got it in primer. But she's shaping up nice. We've got our temp gauge in. Our carburetor is hooked up the way it should be. Once we get everything buffed out, I think we'll probably take it to a car show. But we got to take it for a test drive. And test drives mean, yep, you called it, burnouts. Thanks for watching. Never forget, drive your shit. We'll see ya.